Hello and welcome back. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you that we come back again to continue the study. I ask you for your Holy Spirit. Please be with us, guide our minds and our thoughts, give us wisdom and understanding, help us to discern between truth and error. Help us to understand what you want to teach us at this special moment in history. Let us understand the current external events that are surrounding us, that are happening in front of our eyes, and let us understand the Sunday law waymark. In Jesus' name, I thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so in this second part, I would like to look at the third row now and want to lay it on the structure of Boston, Concord, Exeter. And then the fourth waymark is the closed door or the fulfillment of an event. So in my presentations from last year, I have tried to show that when the first and second woe is the literal Ottoman Empire, then the third woe must be the spiritual Ottoman Empire. The spiritual Ottoman Empire are not the Taliban, not Hamas, not Iran or other groups, but it is the so-called Caliphate of the Islamic State. It's a worldwide spiritual movement. They are the third woe or the resurrection of the Ottoman Empire. I have explained this in much more details in my 5-part series from March 2024. The third woe begins to prepare through the events in the Middle East between 1840 and 1989. 1989 ends with an enormous success for the Mujahideen because they are able to defeat one of the two world superpowers at that time, the Soviet Union. The global jihadism transfers from the Mujahideen to Al-Qaeda and then to the Islamic State. In order to understand if the third woe will be seen at the Sunday law, we need to lay that history on our structure of Boston, Concord, and Exeter. So 1989 is Boston. A reform line for the spiritual Ottoman Empire has begun. When we want to understand 2001, we have to understand Boston, Concord, Exeter. From 1989, the third woe is in their final steps to begin the war against the King of the North. After bringing the superpower of the Soviet Union to crumble, the movement that formed out of the Mujahideen in Afghanistan felt strong enough to defeat the other remaining superpower, the USA. Their mission was to raise up the modern Ottoman Empire in order to torment and conquer the modern army of Rome, in order to take revenge for the crusade of the Roman Empire. Even they understand that it's not literal, but spiritual Rome now. In 1989, after their victory over the Soviet Union, the idea of jihad was empowered. It was a starting point of their mission. In Afghanistan, the international jihadist movement flourished. They had built up prophecy schools and training camps, which lead us to the next waymark, Concord, in 1991. Osama bin Laden flees from Saudi Arabia to Afghanistan. They start the jihadist movement Al-Qaeda, and their main mission is to fight against the USA. So in 1991, their movement has an increase of knowledge about their mission. 2 years later, in 1993, was the first attack on the World Trade Center in New York. Wikipedia says about the attack that they wanted to use a larger quantity of explosives to bring down the North Tower and cause it to collapse onto the South Tower. But there were not enough explosives available for this. So this was a first attempt to bring down both towers of the World Trade Center. Our next waymark is 1996, which is Exeter. And we know Exeter is a formalization, a foretaste, a warning, a message, a visualization, a prophecy of the upcoming event. Bin Laden went to Sudan in 1992 to spread his ideology in Africa, but in 1996 he came back to Afghanistan. So both in 91 and in 96 he came to Afghanistan. In that year, he issued the founding manifesto of Al-Qaeda, where he officially declared the war on the USA. He formulated his message. It was a so-called fatwa, which is basically an Islamic law issued by a cleric. He made it like an obligation for everyone who professes to be a faithful Muslim to take part in that war, like a divine commandment. This is the formalization of the message, the prediction of what they are going to do at the next waymark. You can find this document here from 1996 on the 9/11 Memorial website. I will not read it, but it's quite interesting. Then in 1998, they repeated their message and issued another fatwa, which said, kill the Americans and their allies. So it was like a swelling of their message from 96. You can read the second fatwa also on the 9/11 Memorial homepage. To make their message clear, they gave a foretaste in the same year. In August 98, they attacked 2 US embassies in Tanzania and Kenya, where 213 people were killed. In my opinion, this is the clear escalation of Exeter. It gets progressively louder and louder. The final waymark of 2001 is the fulfillment of what was predicted in 1996. Bin Laden predicted we will attack the USA. In 2001, it was realized. I think in this dispensation, the structure of Boston, Concord, Exeter is very clearly seen. It is one story, it is cause and effect. Not only Osama bin Laden predicted what he will do, but also the US intelligence service knew it in advance. At least they knew details. George Bush was warned that bin Laden was planning a big attack on the USA. They had certain details about the plan and knew it was imminent. This article from Foreign Affairs, I had shared it with Katja. You might have read it already. It was written in June 2024. And it says, the terrorism warning lights are blinking red again. Echoes of the run-up to 9/11. I read only the first paragraph. From his confirmation hearing to become Director of Central Intelligence in May 1997 until September 11, 2001, George Tenet was sounding an alarm about Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. So this is exactly the time period of Exeter, from 96 or 97 until 9/11, where he was sounding an alarm about Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. He said that he was warning he testified publicly no fewer than 10 times about the threat the group posed to the US interests at home and abroad. He said, there is not the slightest doubt that Osama bin Laden is planning further attacks against us. The last sentence, The CIA and the FBI may not have uncovered the time, place, or method of the 9/11 plot, but Tennant's warnings were prophetic. And I would say it was indeed prophetic. The characteristic of Exeter is that it is predicting the event at the coming waymark. And the event was, of course, 9/11, the official beginning of the Third War. So we have a new dispensation, 2001 is Boston, and it points to the Sandelo waymark on the line of the 144,000, or to the 2014 waymark on the line of the fractals. And we look at the fractals first. At 9/11, the army of Rome was attacked by the Third War. The Third War officially began on that date. Al-Qaeda was able to terribly hurt the other superpower, the USA. As consequence, on October 7, marked this special date, October 7, the USA invaded Afghanistan and the war on terror began. Jihadists say it's the beginning of the modern crusade against Islam. Then on November 9, also an important date, the Taliban were defeated, but terrorism was not at all defeated. In 2003, the USA invaded Iraq and overthrew the regime. Many soldiers got unemployed and joined the ranks of the jihadists. Boston is a begin of a story that develops and escalates until 2014. The jihad of Al-Qaeda against the Crusaders continue in Europe. In 2004 and 2005, there are big attacks in Spain and in the UK after the pattern of 9/11. From 2004 until 2008, the Islamic State in Iraq is built up. In that time, they publish important scriptures which form the future character of the Islamic State. I would consider this time period as their progressive increase of knowledge about their mission. In 2011, bin Laden is killed under Obama. The Syrian civil war begins and jihadism grows extremely. The Islamic State in Syria rises in that time period. 2012 is Exeter. It's a formalization. In 2012, for the first time, the Caliphate of the Islamic State in Iraq is proclaimed. Jihadism officially transfers to the Islamic State as a main actor. Al-Qaeda remains, but it is not that powerful and not that international as the Islamic State. They begin to conquer territory and recruit a lot of enthusiasts from many countries. The civil war in Syria and the US invasion in Iraq played an important part in this further development. In 2012, Hillary Clinton wrote in her emails that were published on WikiLeaks that she is aware that what will happen when they work together with rebels and jihadists to fight against Assad in Syria. So they are fully aware that this will strengthen ISIS, but the fight against Assad was more important to the US, because also Assad was an ally of Russia. As we know, Exeter is a preview of what will happen next. And in 2012, the Islamic State of Iraq was proclaimed for the first time, but it was still regional and pointed to a much bigger event. And this was in 2014. The global Islamic State was proclaimed. Historians call this the most spectacular event since 9/11. There is much to say about that event, but I will summarize it with this quote by the historian Gilles Kepel. The clashes in the first 6 months of 2014 culminated in an event that can be considered the most spectacular of international jihadism after the 9/11 attacks, the proclamation of the Caliphate. So he is bookending 2001, 9/11, and 2014. From 2001, the story develops until its climax in 2014. The Islamic State was on its height. They conquered many parts of Syria and parts of Iraq. Thousands of people from many countries, including Western countries, converted to Islam. They spread their doctrine very successfully through social media and reached thousands. 2012 pointed to 2014. And remember, 2014 is our first Sunday Law Waymark. Robert Manny writes in his book, which is called The Mind of the Islamic State, which I really recommend to understand the Islamic State. He writes, shortly after, ISIS shortened its name to the Islamic State, which is in 2014. And they declared that the centuries-old caliphate abolished in 1924 by the Turkish President Kemal Atatürk was now reborn. So he is speaking here about the Ottoman Empire that fell in 1840, according to our prophecy, and it was finally abolished in 1924. This caliphate, this Ottoman Empire, is now reborn in 2014 in the Islamic State, as he is saying. So the Ottoman Empire was officially reborn in 2014 in the Caliphate of the Islamic State, which I would call the spiritual Ottoman Empire or the Third World. Now we come to the next dispensation. 2014 is Boston and the dispensation until 2019. In 2014, as I said, the Islamic State was on their climax in regards to occupied territory in Syria and Iraq. Since then, the King of the South and the King of the North fought strongly against ISIS in Syria and took back these territories. The war on terror intensified. 2014 to 2019 was a decline for them in regards to territory, but ideologically it was a further rise. We need to consider that it is a spiritual kingdom that they are building. Their ideology is spread worldwide. In these years, the Islamic State commit many attacks in France, Germany, USA, and also Russia. And a large number of refugees come to Europe and to the come to Europe in these years. And the European governments are challenged enormously by this. Right-wing parties use it to spread populism and get more votes. In 2016, it is their increase of knowledge. They published their increase of knowledge in the official magazine of the Islamic State, where they declare, kill any disbeliever, which is a call to worldwide jihad. So they have an increase of knowledge again on their mission. In 2018, it is Exeter, so we should see at this waymark what will happen in 2019. And it's also a continuation of the story of 2014 and 2016. It's also connected to the fight between the King of the South and the King of the North. They fight over spheres of influence, and it is heading to Rafia in 2019. So in 2018, Putin and Trump made a deal. They said that the US withdraw their troops from Syria and Afghanistan and remove the sanctions on Russian oligarchs. End of 2018, Trump announces officially that the troop withdrawal from Syria will take place in the next year. But he was warned that this will be a huge mistake. There are some articles about this. If you are interested, you can read it on your own time. Or actually, I will read this bit. The Trump administration says US troops are being withdrawn from Syria after the president said the Islamic State group had been defeated. So Trump said the Islamic State was defeated. We don't need any US troops in Syria anymore. But one of Mr. Trump's supporters, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who sits on the Armed Services Committee, called it a huge Obama-like mistake. In a series of tweets, he said the Islamic State was not defeated and warned withdrawing US troops puts our allies, the Kurds, at risk. This is another article from Vox, where also other officials warned Trump very clearly. For example, Brett McGurk, the State Department's top official leading the anti-ISIS coalition, he said, "We are in Syria to fight ISIS. That is our mission. That mission is not over, and we are going to complete that mission." Another military commander said, "The hard part, I think, is in front of us." Trump could undo that work if he agrees to remove US troops from northeast Syria. So he was clearly warned that the withdrawal of troops from Syria is a huge mistake. Al Jazeera wrote that it is a bad idea. It will strengthen the hand of al-Assad allies, Russia and Iran. So the troop withdrawal will strengthen even Russia. Senator Lindsey Graham, typically a Trump backer, called this decision a disaster in the making. He added, "The biggest winners in this are ISIS and Iran, and also Russia." Marco Rubio, another Republican senator, called the move a grave error, adding that Kurdish fighters will stop fighting ISIS when they had to confront Turkish troops crossing the border into Syria. He said, "This is a bad idea because it goes against the fight against ISIS and potentially helps ISIS." So 2018 was a prediction for what happened in 2019. They knew that the US withdrawal from Syria will strengthen Russia and also ISIS. Trump brought Putin the victory. In 2018, Rafah was predicted, and it is directly connected with the story of ISIS. 2019 was a victory for Russia, and it was a victory for ISIS. Everyone except Trump understood what the removal of the troops would mean, but Trump rejects any warning. It was clear that the mission to fight ISIS was not over, and the announcement to withdraw US troops from Syria was good news for ISIS to regain power and continue their mission, which is since centuries the same mission: fight the armies of Rome. In 2019, he does what he announced in 2018. He withdrew from Syria. This was the Pyrrhic victory for Russia, and it was the victory for ISIS. Now, in 2019, a new dispensation begins. The withdrawal of the US from Syria favors jihadism to rise again and motivates them. In their narrative, it means that they were able to drive the arch-enemy, the unbelievers, the crusaders, out of their country, just as they did in Afghanistan in 1989. They are able to defeat a world superpower. In an information warfare, it's the narrative that counts. So the victory was more important for them than we might think and than what the media portrays. 2020 is Concord, the increase of knowledge. Trump announces in February 2020 the withdrawal from Afghanistan, despite warnings that ISIS-K, which is the affiliated group of ISIS in Afghanistan, will rise. So the increase of knowledge of what will happen is there. This message gives hope to ISIS-K. 2021 is Exeter, the formalization. The withdrawal of the US troops from Afghanistan took place from May until August, despite despite all these warnings. As a result, the Taliban take Kabul on August 15. The return of the Taliban on August 15 is an important waymark in the story of the Third War because it strengthened ISIS-K, the Afghan affiliate of ISIS. So the warnings of what will happen when the US troops are removed were clear. It will enable ISIS-K to rise, and they are the threat to the army of Rome. With the withdrawal of the US troops and the return of the Taliban, thousands of ISIS fighters came out of the prisons. This is an article from Business Insiders. I read just here at the bottom. The Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan puts significant pressure on ISIS to demonstrate its continued relevance to global jihad, which will make ISIS more dangerous as it attempts to prove the organization's capability and relevance. Exeter is announcing the coming waymark, which is in 2021 as well. After the US withdrew most of their troops and after the Taliban took Kabul, ISIS-K immediately showed their new strength. It was cause and effect. Exeter predicted what will come next, and the effect was that ISIS-K directly attacked the army of Rome. On August 26, 2021, ISIS-K attacked the US military at the Kabul airport and killed 13 US soldiers and many civilians. So it was a clear fulfillment of what was predicted. The Washington Post wrote, for months, terrorism analysts warned that Islamic State-linked militants in Afghanistan would try to turn the Biden administration's exit into a bloody spectacle. On Thursday in Kabul, those predictions were realized. It was really a prediction at Exeter and then the fulfilling. Here in the middle, in the hours before the attack, US and Western governments warned of a specific threat related to ISIS-K and urged people to stay away from the airport, so it was known. An attack was said to be imminent and has now taken place. Here on the bottom, the blast of the airport today is showing that unfortunately a very bloody future is ahead of us. So we can clearly see in this dispensation, all precautions are done for ISIS to rise again to power. They got the US out of Syria and out of Afghanistan. The removal of the troops was announced in 2020, which is the increase of knowledge in this dispensation under Trump, and it was realized in 2021 under Biden. And with it came a warning and a prophecy, which is Exeter. And then the fulfillment of the predicted event, which was a deadly attack against the army of Rome. Now we come to the next dispensation, which is 2021 to the Sunday law. In 2021, the crisis of the Islamic State was over. Especially ISIS-K is rising since that date. After the withdrawal, thousands of fighters came out of prison. ISIS-K committed the deadly attack on the US troops and demonstrated their power. ISIS-K can now further strengthen and build up a worldwide network. In this new dispensation, 2021 is at Boston. It's a beginning of a story leading up to the Sunday law. I would suggest that Concord is 2022. It's the increase of knowledge in this dispensation. In the internal line of the movement, I would mark the Vespers of Elder Tess as our increase of knowledge. And for me personally, the Vespers were crucial to understand why neither the right wing nor the left wing really understand Islam. And the Vespers were essential for the understanding of all of our other lines too. So she laid the groundwork. She gave us the increase of knowledge before she left it on us to dig out the remaining information of Exeter and the Sandilo. In our story in 2022, ISIS-K attacked the Russian embassy in Afghanistan and show clear ambitions to attack the West. In the same year, another prison breakout takes place in Syria, where many ISIS fighters were freed. ISIS from Syria and ISIS-K from Afghanistan are spread worldwide. Their ideology is spread through social media and attracts thousands of people worldwide. Another important event in that dispensation is October 7, 2023, the attack by Hamas on Israel and the following war in Gaza. I think it was an important event in the further development in the story of the Third World. A CNN article says that ISIS sought to exploit the situation in Gaza within days of this October 7 attacks by Hamas. So all what happened on that day and in the aftermath had further strengthened ISIS. It was another turning point for global jihadism. Now we come to Exeter and then to the Sandilo Waymark. I suggest that 2024 is Exeter. I'm reading from the same CNN article. In January last year, which was 2024, ISIS spokesman al-Ansari called on Muslims to hunt your prey, the Jews, Christians, and their allies in the streets and alleyways of America, Europe, and the world. As in years before, ISIS urged followers to direct your actions at the easy targets before the difficult, the civilian targets before the military, and the religious targets, such as synagogues and churches, before anything else. That means for me that in 2024, they reaffirmed their declaration of war. They formulated their message again. Remember, in 1996, Osama bin Laden formulated his message in declaring officially war against the US and the world and calling on all Muslims to participate. This here is the same message. It's the formalization of their message. It's the declaration of war, which took place in 2024. On March 22nd, 24, ISIS-K attacked Russia. It was a big orchestrated attack on a concert hall near Moscow with 145 people killed. This attack made clear that ISIS-K is well and alive, that they are able to do big, devastating, organized attacks on international ground. They had a message and they manifested that they were able to realize it. In August 24, Foreign Affairs published an article with the headline, ISIS-K goes global. The world is not ready to confront a new international terror threat. Just reading a few parts of this. The group's affiliate, the South Asian-based Islamic State Khorasan, ISIS-K, is responsible for several successful international terrorist attacks this year alone. The warning lights for large-scale violence, they concluded, are flashing as brightly today as in the years before 9/11. So they are comparing 2024 with the years before 9/11. The warning lights are flashing as brightly today as in the years before 9/11. ISIS-K is among the most concerning given its capabilities and intent. This article basically explains the development of ISIS-K and says that they are those who have the most possibilities to do orchestrated big attacks on international ground. They are pushing their propaganda globally, and they are planning attacks worldwide. This article says at the end, actually, I will read here the yellow part. After the ISIS-K attack in Moscow in March, Christopher Wray, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, warned that the potential for a coordinated attack on US soil was increasingly concerning. Wray added, "As I look back over my career in law enforcement, I'm hard-pressed to come up with a time when I have seen so many different threats all elevated at the same time." I understand this as very clear warnings that were proclaimed here in 2024, which I understand to be Exeter. We come now to this article that we have already started when we discussed 9/11. It was written in June 2024, and I think also this is very prophetic. Just the headline is saying the terrorism warning lights are blinking red again, echoes of the run-up to 9/11. So they are comparing the time before 9/11 to our time now in 2024. I'm reading here 2.5 decades later, in 2024, Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, is sounding similar alarms like before 9/11. His discussions within the Biden administration are private, but his testimony to Congress and other public statements could not be more explicit. Testifying in December 2023 to members of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Wray said, "When I sat here last year, I walked through how we were already in a heightened threat environment. Yet, after Hamas attacked Israel on October 7, we have seen the threat from foreign terrorists rise to a whole nother level," he added. Then he's saying the threat includes different terrorist groups. He says these include Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, also known as ISIS, and especially Islamic State Khorasan. So he says Islamic State, Khorasan, ISIS-K is the most important threat. He says, or they write here in the article, US Attorney General Merrick Garland is speaking about the possibility of a terrorist attack on the United States, said that the threat level has gone up enormously. Put simply, the United States faces a serious threat of a terrorist attack in the month ahead, so it is very imminent. They pay particular attention to ISIS-K. In March 2023, testimony to the Senate Armed Services Committee, he warned that the group would be able to carry out an operation against US or Western interests abroad in under 6 months with little to no warning. Foiled plots inside the United States should be the ultimate wake-up call, and there were several foiled plots in the USA and also in Europe. I think the warning can't get clearer. This is Exeter, in my opinion. A very clear and serious warning. And the first demonstration of what they are capable of doing, we saw in March with the attack in Moscow. When terrorist groups make explicit threats to the United States, Washington should listen. It is not uncommon for adversaries to say precisely what they are going to do, as bin Laden did before 9/11. So for me, this looks like an Exeter before 9/11. And these explicit threats were made in 2024. This must be an Exeter to the next waymark, which is the Sunday law, in my understanding. Reading the last part here. For the past 2 decades, under both Republican and Democratic administrations, the efforts of thousands of Americans in the military and intelligence communities have spared the country a second 9/11 or worse. This is an extraordinary achievement, but the work is not done. A terrorist attack is a preventable catastrophe. As the threat increases, policymakers must rise to the challenge to protect the US homeland. Now, with all the purging of the FBI and CIA that Trump is doing since he is in office, I wonder how this will continue. And we know Trump does not listen to any warning. When Bush did not listen, Trump wouldn't listen even less. I believe that the Sunday law is in 2025, the shipwreck of the institution, which was announced and prepared in 2024 and has come into effect in January 2025. The lamb-like beast is speaking like a dragon. In my understanding, the speaking began in January. It looks democratic like a lamb, but it speaks dictatorial like a dragon. If my logic is correct, in the year of the Sunday law, because of issuing the Sunday law, the army of Rome will be hit by ISIS. The FBI director and others said in 2024, we are in the run-up to 9/11. I think that 2001 is pointing to 2025. And the threat is twofold. There are lone wolf attacks, but also orchestrated attacks. I have no idea what it will be, and I think we won't get more details beforehand. By definition, it will be suddenly and unexpectedly. It's not through such kind of prophecy that we should attract people into the movement, because our message, of course, is equality. A fulfilling of such an event just serves the purpose to confirm our waymarks and our methodology. Now, the year 2025 began with the following event. In the early morning of the 2025 New Year celebrations in New Orleans, a man with an ISIS flag on his pickup drove into a crowd to destroy the New Year's celebrations of the Crusaders, the unbelievers, in their words. It was not New Year in the Islamic calendar, it was only the Christian New Year. The name of this man, translated from Arabic, means the son of the violent religion. So I think it was no coincidence that the year 2025 began with that attack. They declared their intentions in 2024, and they are beginning to realize it in 2025. It's the same what happened between 1996 and 2001. They declared their intentions, gave a foretaste of what they are capable to do with the attacks in 1998, and then came 9/11. I see the New Orleans attack as another confirmation of what might happen within this year in a bigger scale. The threat is twofold, lone wolf and also orchestrated attacks. Here is another clear message in a CNN video from January 1st, 2025. It is called ISIS has made a comeback. Once through beaten back and eliminated, ISIS-inspired terror attacks spiked in 2024. CNN's Nick Robertson reports on what has experts worried. CNN's Nick Robertson reports on what has experts worried about the terror group's increase in activity. The bloody bounce back began several years ago, gaining global attention, killing 13 US troops as coalition forces pulled out of Afghanistan in 2021. So it began at Exeter on the Big Line, in 2021. But since then, most of ISIS recovering has not sparked massive global attention. 2025 might be the year that changes. So 2025 might be the year that ISIS will spark massive global attention. The expert was saying if they can do something in the US, in Europe, in Russia, Turkey, Iran, Central Asia, if they can do it, they will do it, because for them, it's a global war. In the line of 144,000, the structure is as follows. 2001 is Boston. In our story of the third woe against the army of Rome, the dispensation begins with 9/11. The third woe begins, the war on jihadist terrorism begins, the jihadist movement grows, develops, and spreads worldwide. This is Boston, a beginning. 2019 is Concord. The US withdrew their troops from Syria, which was a victory for ISIS, even if they looked territorially defeated. They disappeared from the surface, but their ideology was empowered. This is Concord. 2021, the US withdrew their troops from Afghanistan, which was another victory for ISIS, especially for ISIS-K. The crisis of the Islamic State was over. They reappeared. It re-energized jihadists around the world. Thousands of ISIS fighters were freed from prisons. ISIS-K manifested their deadly capability by an attack against the US military in Kabul. They attacked the army of Rome. This is Exeter, a foretaste, a visible sign, a prophecy of a future event. The year 2025 began with an attack on US territory by an ISIS-inspired man in New Orleans. I think we should carefully watch what will happen in the next time to come. Now, Trump gives enough reason for the jihadists to hate the USA. This video here, which he posted on February 26, it was not made on his order, but he reposted it. And it contains every possible symbology that triggers their moral and traditional values enormously. It's the crusader and the Jew, half naked, sitting in Palestine on their holy ground. This is pure blasphemy in their eyes. And all these other pictures are all very strong triggers for them. In an information warfare, this video is a direct attack against them. It's the modern crusade that will not remain unanswered. In summary, as I have explained in the first part of the study, I believe that the institution got finally shipwrecked in January 2025. They are pretending to be a democracy or a lamb, but speaking as a dragon. The election looked as being free and fair, but by definition, it was not. So by doing this, they have committed the biggest sin which a democracy can commit. All institutions, both parties, the Congress, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and also the media, I would say, are guilty of this sin. The people have not yet failed. Their test comes later, but the institution has failed. The glorious land is not glorious anymore. Now, in my second part, I have discussed the third woe by placing it on the line. We have seen the repeating pattern of Boston, Concord, Exeter, and we have seen that both the dispensation of 2001 to the Sunday Law and also of 2021 to the Sunday Law point to an event with ISIS at the Sunday Law Waymark, who will be hurting again the army of Rome. Okay, that was my second part. Now you feel free to ask any questions.
Hi, Lina. I have a question, but it's more on the structure. So you said that for each structure, a year, a waymark is a year. Is that for, so like 2001 is the whole year that you're looking at, 2019 is the whole year that you're looking at, 2020 and 2025 is the whole year.
Yes.
So on the structure before this one, you had the Exeter and the fulfillment the same year.
Go back
So
to this. No. This
yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, so in this one you have Exeter and the fulfillment the same year.
Yes.
So it's either or. It's either you see it as or a full year for the waymark, or I'm just trying to understand. So you see it for the waymark Exeter, it's the full year, but you have the fulfillment the same year.
Yeah. And I think we have the same dynamic in the internal line. So we have in the fractal, we have 2019 to 2021, and we have our Exeter for the movement. We have it in August 2021, and then we have the last waymark in October 2021. So there we have the same. It's just in the same year, but on the big line, also in the internal line, we have 2021 as the whole year for Exeter. Also, Tess is saying, and I have shown this in my first presentation, that January 6 is part of the Exeter waymark, not in the internal line, not in the fractal, but in the line of the 144,000. It's January 6th that has to be included. So it belongs to the Exeter waymark on the big scale. And when we zoom in, we see that we have the fractal, and there we have the difference between Exeter and the event in the same year. But this does not deny that we have the whole year of 2021 as an Exeter in the big line. Does it make sense?
I think I'll think of it.
You can watch the video of Elder Tess where she says that January 6th belongs to Exeter. There she also says people may not agree because we always said it's August and it's October, Exeter and the event. But there she says basically the same. You can go back to the first presentation. There's the link to the video of Elder Tess, and maybe then it makes more sense.
Yeah, I understand 2021 as being an Exeter, but I was just trying to put it in your structure when you said that you have a full year, a full year equals a full waymark, and that's what I had in my mind. I have no problem with January 6th being part of Exeter. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'll think of it a little bit more. Thank you.
Okay.
Annabelle, you want to say something?
Yes, I was just wondering, you know how Ellen White in 90, what she wrote, and it being a harbinger for what's to happen in the close of probation time period. I'm just wondering if, you know, after reading that article from June 2024, you know, the world doesn't know about what Ellen White has written. Are we still to consider what Ellen White has written when we are looking at what to expect when ISIS does strike.
Yes, so I believe that Ellen White is talking about the close of probation in the context of 9/11. When you read it, you see she's talking about the time of trouble after or during the judgment of the final judgment. And I believe that also at this waymark, at the close of probation, there will be something with ISIS. We know that it is the four winds that are letting loose, that are let loose. And the four winds is also the east wind, but not only the east wind. It is nation against nation. So I still think that what Ellen White predicts in 1911 will come true. It will be like a punishment. But I think it does not deny that ISIS will also attack the USA at the Sanilo waymark, which is earlier in this dispensation. But I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, so you think that ISIS will strike like twice or more, several times or whatever?
Yes, I don't know if it in 2025 if it will be one event or if it will be several events. I don't know this, and I also don't know at close of probation. I don't know any details, but I believe that the third woe begins at 9/11 and it goes until the final end. It does not stop at the Sanelo. So I could imagine that after the Sanelo we will see them again, but I don't know about the details.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone has have a question for Elena?
Elena,
Danny?
I was intrigued by, in the article that you had Katya share, the same U.S. Central Command general is still in power. You know, Trump hasn't gotten rid of him yet. And
which one? Who?
This is General Michael Eric Kurilla. And in the terrorism article, it was he's quoted a few times, but part of the reason I'm curious of your thoughts is that U.S. Central Command CENTCOM group was able to kill the number 2 in ISIS on Thursday, and quoting that general, I'll just read, "We will continue to kill terrorists and dismantle their organizations that threaten our homeland and U.S. allied and partner personnel in the region and beyond." And I know in the article it was making mention of Soleimani's death and Christopher Wray's warnings and forgotten his first name, but the man Tenet, you know, all the different warnings over time. So with this recent death of the number 2 in Iraq, I wonder what your thoughts are. Is it going to be events like these kinds of things? You know, U.S. being involved in taking out different ISIS operatives and ISIS-K people, perhaps? Are those going to be some of the things you think that will lead
yeah,
to a bigger event?
the fight against terrorism continues. We see this many times. We read in the news that the USA have attacked ISIS in Syria, for example, after the fall of Assad, which I also would mark as an important event in that development, because also many prisoners were freed, and under them were also ISIS fighters. And the US did big attacks on some ISIS bases. And we from time to time, we can read that they killed another leader, another important person. So the war on terror continues. And they killed, when they killed Osama bin Laden, or then later Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, it was never that it weakened them. It is the opposite, basically, because their ideology remains, and they basically confirms the hate on the US. So they are very well organized, even without their leaders. Even when a leader is killed, this leader is replaced immediately, and their ideology just increases. It motivates them even more. So I would not see this as a defeat, but as the opposite.
That's a very good point, Elena. Is it that it just increases their motivation, their reason for existence, and their strength, really, in reality. Thank you very much.
I will add a little bit to that, and I was wondering, in their ideology, when they believe that they need to be killing people and be very radical, I'm just wondering how they plan on, they attack innocent civilians, and everything they do is so planned. And I was wondering, these innocent civilians, do they attack them because they're connected with something that is against ISIS, or just anyone from that country?
Yes, it's for them, anyone who does not have their belief is an apostate, and an apostate deserves death. This is just their easy definition.
But a lot of people that they attack, they don't know what they believe. Yes,
of course, that they don't discern. It's just they put everyone in one pot. And for example, they don't like of course, the politics of Israel now in Gaza, and they say every Israelian is guilty of this because they voted for the president. So the president is the representative of the people. So the people, what the president does, the people do. It's like it's for them the same. And this is when, for example, Germany or France are engaged in the war against terrorism, then all the Germans, every individual deserves the revenge, deserves death, because the politicians are the representatives of the people. They don't discern if this person is a believer, or what this person really believes or not. They don't care.
Okay, thank you. And one more little question. ISIS-K, I read in the article that they are enemies of the Taliban. And so what is the Taliban?
The Taliban are also a very radical Islamist group, and also it's very interesting to look at the history, because many waymarks are connected to our line, like 96, 2001, August 15, 2021, but but the Taliban are not the group that I would identify as third world, because they have not this worldwide expansion. They don't want to conquer the world or spread their ideology internationally. They don't intend to attack the army of Rome. What they want is build up a nation, build up Afghanistan, be a recognized nation, a recognized government, and suppress their people. They want to install Sharia law. They want to have the worst form of sexism, of patriarchy, but they don't have this international aim to grow globally and place or build up a spiritual kingdom which is worldwide. They just focus on their nation.
Okay, thank you, Elena.
And in the eyes of ISIS or ISIS-K, the Taliban are also apostates. They don't accept each other.
Which is why I guess in the article, it was sort of carefully saying in terms of the US almost working with the Taliban against ISIS. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yes.
they were suggesting that they should work together. Yeah.
So the bigger threat, and in part, as you're explaining it, the worldwide one is ISIS and ISIS-K.
Yes.
Thank you.
And so, Elena, like the way I asked you before, but I supposed to ask you in this second presentation, that the same question, like if third world war, third war is going to happen, then for us we're gonna know that this is the starting of the close of probation, and for you, like I don't understand, like I just want to compare your presentation with a Lateri, because a Lateri, she had a national Sunday law, and for you I don't see. And if I can imagine, like I think maybe maybe you agree, like because it seems like you are talking with a worldwide Sunday law. Your focus is really on worldwide Sunday law, and Terry Lambert also. She also plays it like that, like in worldwide Sunday law is going to be like the beginning also of a close of probation. And also the way I saw yours too, it much also like that. So, and if I can see, maybe there will be no difference between your presentation and Terry Lambert, because Terry put it like that. When we see, actually Terry didn't say that. When we see third war is the beginning of a close of probation, but I just placed it like that. Maybe it's going to be the beginning of close of probation. So how do you see? Because Terry Lambert had national Sunday law. For you, you don't have it. So how is it? I think maybe, is it not the same thing? Are you not agree with Terry Lambert in this, or how?
No, I would say this waymark here, 2025, is the National Sunday Law waymark. It is not the worldwide Sunday Law waymark. It is, I have shown in the first presentation that I'm talking about the close of probation for the institution and the shipwreck for the institution. And this is at the National Sunday Law waymark. So this is what I'm talking about. And I believe when an event with the third woe takes place in that year, it will confirm our method. It will confirm the methodology that we are using. But I don't believe that this is then the close of probation or the worldwide Sunday Law waymark. I think it is the National Sunday Law waymark or the shipwreck, the close of probation for the institution. And yes, I understand that here's the point where I don't agree with Elder Terry. And this is where we all have to study and investigate and check which suggestion is correct and which one is wrong.
And if I also ask, like, if you don't agree with Terry Lambert because the 2024 is a national Sunday Law, which is in America, and for you place it here in 2025, and you also place third war in this too, and we know that third war is the judgment for everyone, right? So, like what happened in 2001, when we see that, we all say that is the beginning, is the beginning of the living, is the beginning of the judgment of the living, right? So, and if we also see the third war again here, it may be the beginning of the judgment also, right? For
No,
everyone.
in my understanding, the third woe is the judgment for the army of Rome, and this is the USA. It's in the first place, it's not the judgment for all individuals, because the first and second woe was the judgment against the Roman Empire, against Rome. So also the third woe is the judgment against Rome, which is the USA. And the USA, the institution of the USA, is judged at the Sunday Law waymark, which is their close of probation. This is my argument.
Okay, so for you, you really place it there, like if it happened, it will show us that this is the Sunday Law, right? And like it's not the beginning of the close of probation. That is yours, right?
Yes.
No. Actually, we actually need to be focusing, like to see for my own. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's exactly the point now of these Sunday Law studies. You will hear next week, you will hear the version of Elder Terry and then of the others. And this is exactly the point that we as a movement have to find out which of these versions are correct and how do they fit together. So I really believe that also Elder Terry's studies are, I would say, 95% correct, and I really learned a lot. And I would not say that one of us is completely wrong and the other person is completely right. I believe that we will put these studies together. They will come together like a puzzle and build up the complete picture. And this is now the process where every one of us is studying and checks if our methodology that we are using, if the application of the lines, if all of this is correct and how we can make this fit or how this can fit together, and how we can find the solution that answers our questions.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that we're gonna be agree in this, because if it happened, maybe Terry Lambert will say, she will say that this is the close of probation, maybe, or it is the beginning, because we all know that it is the process whereby there is the beginning and increase of knowledge until like that. So we are going to wait for Terry Lambert also to 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 represent his own study. We are going to wait for it on Friday.
Yeah,
Anyway, thank you.
you're welcome.
I think we can close, Elena, and
Okay.
I know that some has a question for you, but offline. So let's close, and then we can take it again.
Okay, let's pray. Dear God, I thank you that you helped me in presenting this message. I ask you for guidance in all of this process to find the solutions. I know that we have several versions and several suggestions, and we, as members, we have to find out what is the solution for all of this, what is the answer. Please help us in this process to come together, not to separate, but to stay in unity, and be open also to maybe correct ourselves if necessary, and to find the solution for our questions on the Sunday Loema. We thank you for your guidance. In Jesus' name, amen.